Beloved chosen one, you are standing at the edge of a realization that your spirit has been trying to accept for longer than your mind has been willing to admit. You were never meant to struggle forever. You were never created to live every day as if survival was the highest form of faith. You were never called to measure your worth by how much pain you could endure, how many storms you could outlast, or how many nights you could cry in silence without breaking in front of the world. There was a season when the fight around you sharpened you, when pressure built your endurance, when hardship revealed what heaven had already placed inside you. But that season was never designed to become your permanent home. The battle trained you, but it was not meant to define you. For so long, you learned to expect resistance before relief. You learned to brace yourself before every new day. You learned how to read the room, protect your heart, and carry burdens without asking anyone to help you. You became strong in ways that few people will ever understand because your strength did not come from comfort. It came from necessity. It came from disappointment. It came from walking through moments that should have destroyed your peace but somehow did not destroy your soul. Yet even now, there is a holy whisper rising above all the noise that has surrounded you, and that whisper is telling you something your exhausted heart desperately needs to hear. You do not have to keep living as if the war will last forever. That matters more than you realize. Because some battles do not end in your body even after they have ended in the spirit. Sometimes the danger passes, but your mind still keeps watch. Sometimes the door finally closes on a painful chapter, but your soul still waits for it to open again. Sometimes God removes the threat, but you still carry the posture of someone preparing for another blow. This is why rest can feel so unfamiliar to you. This is why peace can almost feel suspicious. This is why calm can make you uneasy. You have spent so much time proving you could survive that you have not fully learned how to receive the gift of safety. But hear this clearly. Rest is not a reward for the lazy. Peace is not something reserved for people who never went through fire. Rest is a promise that belongs to those who have endured. Peace is part of your inheritance. God is not asking you to become weaker. He is inviting you to become settled. He is not telling you to stop caring. He is teaching you to stop carrying what He never intended for you to hold by yourself. There is a difference between being watchful and being worn down. There is a difference between faithfulness and self-destruction. There is a difference between perseverance and living in a constant state of inner warfare. You have had moments when you thought that if you relaxed for even a second, everything would fall apart. You believed that vigilance was the only thing holding your life together. You believed that if you stopped pushing, striving, and overthinking, you might lose ground. You fought too hard to gain. Yet the truth is that God has never depended on your anxiety to protect your future. He has never required your exhaustion as proof of your loyalty. He has never asked you to bleed endlessly just to prove that you trust Him. In fact, some of the deepest faith you will ever show is not found in another desperate attempt to control the outcome. It is found in your willingness to exhale and believe that God is still God when your hands are no longer gripping everything so tightly. Chosen one. The reason this message is landing in your spirit now is because you are entering a turning point, not because every challenge has instantly disappeared, and not because life will never test you again, but because the chapter where struggle became your normal is coming to an end. You are being called out of survival mode. You are being called out of constant inner tension. You are being called out of the belief that pain is the only atmosphere where purpose can grow. There is purpose in peace too. There is power in stillness too. There is anointing in rest too. And this is where many people miss the moment. They know how to cry out in battle, but they do not know how to trust in the quiet after it. They know how to fight for a breakthrough, but they do not know how to live like the breakthrough already belongs to them. You are being taught something deeper now. You are being taught how to stop identifying yourself with your struggle. Yes, you survived it. Yes, you learned from it. Yes, it shaped you in certain ways. But you are not the wound. You are not the pressure. You are not the warfare. You are the one God carried through it. And now He is showing you that what carried you through the fire will also carry you into the calm. There is something sacred about this moment because you can feel the shift before you fully understand it. The old urgency is losing its grip. The old panic is not fitting the same way anymore. The old fear that used to move you so quickly is starting to sound unfamiliar. That is not weakness. That is healing. That is what happens when heaven begins to untangle the knots that battle tied inside you. Little by little, you stop reacting to everything like it is a threat. Little by little, you stop assuming that every delay means disaster. Little by little, you start to believe that God can lead you gently and still lead you powerfully. So let this truth settle into the deepest part of you today. You do not have to earn rest by collapsing. You do not have to prove your devotion through constant struggle. You do not have to remain in a battle posture just because it became familiar. The season is changing, and you are allowed to change with it. Comment 999 if your spirit is ready to receive the peace God has already prepared for you. This is not you giving up. This is you finally understanding that victory is not always announced with noise. Sometimes it arrives as permission to put your shoulders down, unclench your heart, and stop calling a temporary fight your permanent identity. You are still chosen. You are still called. You are still marked by purpose. But now you are being invited to discover that strength does not only look like endurance. Sometimes strength looks like trust. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like refusing to pick another fight when God is already closing the last one. And as this message moves deeper into your spirit, you will begin to see that what felt like the end of your energy is actually the beginning of your release. The battle taught you many things, but one lesson is rising above them all now. You were never meant to struggle forever. You can feel it now, even if you do not fully know how to explain it. The noise is changing. The pressure that once seemed to surround every thought is no longer closing in with the same force. The fear that used to rise so quickly is not speaking with the same authority. Something around you is beginning to calm, and something within you is learning how to calm with it. This is not denial. This is not carelessness. This is not you pretending that the struggle was not real. This is the sacred moment when you begin to understand that the war around you is ending, even before every visible sign has caught up with what God has already declared. That is often how divine victory first appears. It does not always arrive with a loud announcement. Sometimes it begins as a quiet lessening of panic. Sometimes it shows up as a strange stillness in the middle of circumstances that would have once overwhelmed you. Sometimes the first evidence that heaven has moved is that your spirit is no longer agreeing with fear. The battle may have been real, the pressure may have been heavy, and the waiting may have been long, but none of that means the conflict will last forever. God knows how to end what once looked endless. This is where Noah's story begins to move gently into your own. Noah lived in a world filled with corruption, violence, and spiritual decay. He was surrounded by people who had no interest in God's ways, and yet he was called to walk differently in the middle of that atmosphere. He did not live in peaceful times. He lived in a generation full of noise, rebellion, and coming judgment. Yet even there, God set his eyes on one man and gave him an assignment that made little sense to everyone around him. Noah was told to build before the rain came. He was instructed to prepare in a season when there was no visible sign that anything was about to change. That alone tells you something powerful. God often begins your deliverance long before the world can recognize it. Imagine the sound that must have surrounded Noah for all those years. There was the sound of mockery from people who did not understand. There was the sound of labor as he kept building with obedience day after day. There was the sound of questions he may not have been able to answer in full. There was the sound of a world continuing in its ordinary patterns while he carried the weight of an extraordinary instruction. And still he kept going. He did not need the crowd to agree. He did not need immediate evidence. He needed trust. He needed endurance. He needed the kind of faith that can keep moving when the promise has not yet become visible. That matters for you because one of the hardest parts of battle is not always the pain itself. Sometimes it is the repetition of it. It is the feeling that the atmosphere never changes. It is the sense that the same pressure keeps circling back. The same concerns keep speaking. The same uncertainty keeps pressing against your peace. Noah knew what it meant to keep obeying in an environment that did not mirror the promise. He knew what it meant to hold to God's word while everything around him appeared unchanged. Yet the unchanged appearance of the world did not mean God was inactive. It meant God was working on a timeline deeper than human understanding. Then the day came when preparation became protection. The rain began. The door was shut by God. What had looked strange in one season became survival in the next. What had likely seemed excessive became the very means by which Noah and his household were preserved. And once the floodwaters rose, something became unmistakably clear. The chaos outside the ark was real, but it did not have final authority over the ones God had covered. That is the word settling over your spirit now. The storm may have been real, but it was never greater than God's covering. The turmoil may have shaken the earth, but it could not cancel what God had decided to preserve. The word says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3. That verse does not describe peace as the absence of pressure. It describes peace as the result of trust. Noah was not preserved because the world was calm. He was preserved because he stayed aligned with God in the middle of a world that was not calm. That is why his story fits this moment in your life so naturally. You are learning that the ending of war does not always begin when everything outside becomes instantly quiet. Sometimes it begins when your trust becomes stronger than the sound of the storm. Think about the ark itself. Inside it, there was waiting. Inside it, there was confinement. Inside it, there was the strange in-between season where the old world had passed away, but the new ground was not yet visible. Noah had to remain under God's covering even when he could not yet see where everything was leading. That is where many chosen ones are tested, not only in the days of warning, and not only in the days of crisis, but in the waiting after God has already acted and before the full evidence of release appears. Yet even there, the war was already turning. Even there, God was already bringing an ending to what had once seemed unstoppable. You may be in a moment like that now. Perhaps the rain has slowed, but the ground is not fully clear. Perhaps the inner panic is lifting, but you are still adjusting to the unfamiliar quiet. Perhaps you know something has changed, but you are not yet standing in the full visible outcome. Noah's journey reminds you that this middle space is not abandonment, it is transition. It is where trust deepens. It is where God teaches you that his covering was never partial, and his timing was never confused. And when the ark finally came to rest, that resting was not an accident. It was a sign. It was proof that the storm had an end point, It was evidence that judgment did not get the final word over the one who walked with God. In the same way, what has shaken your life does not get the final word over you. The season of constant inner warfare is losing its power. The flood of fear is receding. The Lord who preserved Noah through what no one else could control is showing you now that the war around you is ending. And you do not have to keep living as though the storm still owns the sky. You are beginning to understand something that many people resist for far too long. Exhaustion was not always a sign that you were failing. Sometimes it was the evidence that you had been carrying more than you were ever meant to carry alone. Sometimes it was the result of trying to stay strong in places where only surrender could truly sustain you. Sometimes it came from fighting battles in your own mind long after God had already started making a way through them. And sometimes your weariness became the very place where heaven taught you the lesson you could not learn any other way. That your strength has limits, but God's strength does not. That truth can be difficult for you to accept because you have spent so much of your life being the one who keeps going. You have been the one who adapts, the one who endures, the one who pushes through when others would have collapsed. You learned to survive long stretches of uncertainty. You learned how to function while carrying silent pressure. You learned how to keep moving while your heart was asking for rest. But there comes a point in every chosen life when endurance alone is no longer the lesson. There comes a point when God allows you to feel the weight of your own limits, so that you will finally stop mistaking constant striving for faith. This is where Noah's journey speaks with unusual tenderness into your spirit. Before the flood ever began, he had already been living under the burden of obedience. He was building something enormous in a season where no one around him could understand why. He was following instructions that probably looked unreasonable to those who watched from a distance, day after day. He gave his time, his body, his focus, and his reputation to a calling that could not yet be explained by visible circumstances. That kind of obedience is costly. It drains the flesh, it tests the mind, it stretches the heart. And yet Noah kept going, not because the assignment was easy, but because he trusted the one who gave it. You can imagine the fatigue that must have gathered in him over time. Not only physical tiredness, though that would have been real enough, but the deep kind of weariness that comes from carrying a word from God in a world that does not honor it. The exhaustion of being misunderstood. The exhaustion of repeating the same obedience without immediate confirmation. The exhaustion of continuing to build while everything around you seems to mock the very need for what you are building. Noah knew what it meant to become tired in the middle of faithfulness. He knew what it meant to keep saying yes while the process itself was slowly emptying him of his self-reliance. That is why your weariness has not been meaningless. It has been revealing where you have reached the edge of yourself. And while that can feel frightening at first, it is often the beginning of something holy. When you can no longer sustain the illusion that your own effort is enough, you become more ready to lean fully into God. When your own understanding runs out, surrender stops sounding like weakness and starts sounding like wisdom. When your own strength can no longer carry the assignment, trust begins to open in a deeper way. Noah did not save himself by his own energy. He obeyed, yes, but the preservation itself was God's. Noah could build the ark, but he could not command the rain. He could prepare the vessel, but he could not control the waters. He could enter the covering, but he could not steer the storm. This is where exhaustion teaches a sacred lesson. It teaches you the difference between your part and God's part. Your part is obedience, your part is trust, your part is staying aligned. But the outcome has never rested on your ability to control everything. The flood did not end because Noah became stronger. It ended because God remembered him. That phrase carries so much comfort. God remembered Noah, not because God had ever forgotten, but because at the appointed time, God moved the season forward. He sent the wind. He caused the waters to recede. He brought change where Noah himself could not manufacture it. In the same way, your life does not move into relief merely because you push harder. It moves because God acts in mercy and timing. Your exhaustion has been teaching you to stop worshiping effort. It has been teaching you to stop believing that every answer must come through strain. It has been teaching you to trust the God who can shift what you cannot. Maybe that is why this message reaches so deeply today. You are tired of carrying what prayer was meant to release. You are tired of rehearsing fears that God never asked you to keep alive. You are tired of trying to force movement in places where only divine timing can open the door. And that tiredness is not your enemy. It may be the very thing breaking your dependence on false control. It may be what finally teaches you that surrender is not collapse. Surrender is agreement with God. Even inside the ark, Noah had to keep trusting. He could not rush the waters down. He could not step out before the time. He had to remain in the place of covering while God finished what only God could finish. That kind of waiting purifies the soul. It strips away the need to manage every detail. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches the heart to rest in God instead of running ahead in panic. Your exhaustion has been part of that same process. It has been bringing you to the end of self-made pressure so that you can finally discover the peace that comes from holy dependence. And as this truth settles into you, let it soften your heart rather than harden it. Let it make you gentler with yourself. Let it remind you that God is not asking you to prove your worth through endless strain. He is leading you into a stronger kind of faith, one that knows how to obey and also knows how to rest. If this message is speaking to your spirit, take a quiet moment to like this message. Share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe so you can keep walking through these words together. And if you want to help support this work, there is a way to donate in the description. You are not weak because you are tired. You are being taught. You are being emptied of self-dependence and filled with deeper trust. Just as Noah learned that survival would not come from human control but from divine covering, you are learning that the next chapter of your life will not be built on striving. It will be built on surrender. Your weariness has not been wasted. It has been preparing you to trust God fully. And that trust is about to feel lighter than the battle ever did. You are discovering that some of the greatest victories in your life happened in places your natural eyes could not fully trace. There were dangers you never recognized in the moment. There were disasters that turned away before they ever touched you. There were traps set in motion that somehow failed to close around your path. There were forces moving beyond your understanding, and yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still carrying purpose, still held by the hand of a God who was fighting for you even when you did not know how much you needed Him to. This is one of the holiest truths you can receive in this season. God won battles for you that you never even saw. That can be hard for your mind to accept because human nature likes visible proof. You often measure God's help by what you can identify, explain, and remember. You thank Him for the doors He opened, the prayers He answered, the pain He healed, and the moments where His rescue was undeniable. But there is another layer of mercy that runs deeper than what you can name. It is the mercy that kept things from reaching you at all. It is the protection that worked in silence. It is the unseen hand of God rearranging events, delaying dangers, softening impacts, and shielding your life from outcomes you were never meant to carry. Noah's story reveals this with quiet power. When most people think of Noah, They think about the ark, the animals, the rain, and the flood. They think about the dramatic moments, the visible signs, the overwhelming waters. But hidden inside that story is a deeper testimony about unseen preservation. Long before the storm arrived, God was already making provision. Long before judgment fell on the earth, God had already marked out a path of survival for the one who walked with him. Long before Noah could witness the full seriousness of what was coming, heaven had begun preparing a shelter. This is important because Noah was not merely saved in the moment of danger. He was secured by a plan that began before the danger broke open. God did not improvise Noah's survival after the flood started. He established it beforehand. He gave instructions in advance. He ordered the dimensions of the ark. He set the process in motion while the sky still looked ordinary. That is how divine protection often works in your life too. You may only notice God once the rain begins, but He was working before the first drop fell. You may only understand His mercy after the crisis becomes visible, but His covering began long before your awareness did. Think about what Noah could not see. He could not see every violent act taking shape across the earth. He could not see every chain of consequence unfolding in the spiritual realm. He could not see the full extent of what judgment would look like once it came. He did not know every detail of how destruction would spread or how many invisible dangers would be moving at once. Yet God saw all of it. God understood every current, every force, every outcome, every threat. And because God saw what Noah could not see, He gave Noah what Noah needed before Noah could fully understand why. That speaks directly to your life. There have been seasons when you thought you were simply enduring ordinary trouble, but God was actually shielding you from something far worse. There have been delays that frustrated you, yet those delays may have been protection. There have been closed doors that wounded your pride, yet those doors may have hidden mercy behind their refusal. There have been relationships that dissolved, plans that shifted, and routes that changed, and only later did you begin to sense that God's hand was steering you away from unseen ruin. What felt confusing then may have been providence all along. The word says, the Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore. Psalm 121, verse 8. That promise is not limited to the moments you notice. It reaches into the places beyond your awareness. It covers your going out and your coming in. It speaks to the ordinary movements of life as well as the extraordinary crises. It reminds you that God is not only present in dramatic rescue, He is faithful in continual guarding. He watches over what you cannot monitor. He attends to what you cannot predict. He remains alert in places where your human understanding can never fully reach. Inside the ark, Noah was held by more than wood and pitch. He was held by the faithfulness of God. The ark itself was only the visible expression of an invisible promise. It was not the craftsmanship alone that preserved him. It was the word of the Lord behind it. It was the covering of God's intention. It was the mercy of a God who had already decided that Noah and his household would not be abandoned to the storm. In the same way, the things that have preserved you are not merely practical circumstances. Behind every shelter God provided, there was a promise. Behind every escape, there was an intention. Behind every unexplained survival, there was love. And even after the waters rose, the unseen work of God did not stop. Beneath the surface of that flood, beyond what Noah could observe from inside the ark, God was still governing the outcome. He was setting limits. He was preserving life. He was carrying the vessel. He was controlling what Noah had no power to control. Noah did not need to see every wave in order to be kept from it. He did not need to understand every movement of the deep in order to remain secure. God was managing realities too vast for human strength. That is what He has done for you again and again. So when you look back over your life, let yourself become humble in the face of this mystery. Not fearful, but reverent. Not anxious, but grateful. You are not only the product of what you survived knowingly, you are also the recipient of mercies you will never fully count. There are battles heaven fought that never became visible enough for you to name. There are losses you never had to carry because God interrupted them before they reached you. There are storms that changed direction because His hand was already on your life. This is why you can trust Him now in ways that go deeper than explanation. The same God who watched over Noah before the rain, during the flood, and after the waters began to retreat is the God who has been watching over you. He has not only helped you in the places you remember, He has preserved you in the places you never saw. And as that truth settles into your heart, it becomes easier to release your fear because you begin to understand that your life has never depended only on what you could manage. It has always been held by a God whose protection reaches far beyond what your eyes can see. At the beginning of this part, there is one practical note for the listener. A product called the Genius Wave, sometimes also called Genius Song, is presented as a short audio experience designed to help with issues many people quietly struggle with every day, such as mental fog, poor focus, scattered thoughts, creative blocks, stress, and the feeling that your mind never fully settles. It is described as a 7-minute-a-day brainwave audio built around binaural beats and isochronic tones, with claims that it may support concentration, clarity, creativity, relaxation, and better mental performance. If that sounds relevant to what you are dealing with, you can look for the official information in the description or the pinned comment. And if you ever decide to try it, be careful with imitations and only use the official source. Now come back with your full attention to what God is saying to your spirit, because this next part matters deeply. Do not pick up what God removed. That is the warning. That is the invitation. That is the line being drawn across your season. There are things heaven has already broken off your life, and yet habit can make you reach for them again. There are burdens God has already lifted, and yet familiarity can make you miss the weight and call it purpose. There are old patterns that once felt necessary for survival, and yet if you return to them now, you will be carrying what no longer belongs to your future. This is one of the quiet dangers that follows any season of deliverance. The storm begins to pass, but the soul still remembers how to brace. The danger fades, but the mind still searches for it. The pressure lifts, but the heart still clings to the posture it developed while under threat. That is why some people leave a hard season physically but remain tied to it inwardly. They stop living in the battle, but they keep thinking from it. They stop walking through the fire, but they still breathe like smoke surrounds them. You are being warned with love not to rebuild the prison God just opened. Noah's story carries this truth in a subtle and powerful way. When the flood had done its work and the ark came to rest, Noah did not need to recreate the storm in order to prove he respected what God had brought him through. He did not need to keep living as if the waters still ruled the earth. He had to recognize the shift. He had to accept that what was necessary in one season was not meant to define the next one forever. The ark had been a place of protection, but there came a time when staying locked inside the mentality of survival would no longer match what God was doing. That is where you may be standing right now. There were ways of thinking you needed when life felt unstable. There were emotional defenses you built because you had to get through what was in front of you. There were inner habits that made sense when you were trying not to drown. But now God is saying that some of those same habits cannot come with you into peace. Hypervigilance cannot guide a healed future. Constant fear cannot steward a promised season. Old panic cannot become your compass in a new beginning. Sometimes you pick up what God removed by returning to thoughts He already delivered you from. Sometimes you do it by reopening doors He already closed. Sometimes you do it by identifying with pain that no longer has the right to name you. And sometimes you do it by assuming that because you once had to fight for everything, you must continue fighting even when God is calling you to rest. But not every battle deserves your energy. Not every memory deserves your agreement. Not every old pattern deserves another chance to live in you. You have to understand that what felt like wisdom in your hardest season may become disobedience in your healing season. Constantly expecting betrayal may once have felt like protection, but now it can block trust. Constantly preparing for loss may once have felt realistic, but now it can choke gratitude. Constantly overthinking every outcome may once have seemed responsible, but now it can become a refusal to let peace have any place in you. When God removes something, He is not asking you to keep visiting it emotionally just because it once felt familiar. Noah knew the difference between remembering what God had done and returning to the mindset of the storm. That difference is important for you too. You are allowed to honor what you survived without living as if you are still trapped in it. You are allowed to learn from the flood without expecting every cloud to become one. You are allowed to value the ark without refusing to step into the new ground God is revealing. Healing does not erase memory, but it does transform your relationship to it. You no longer bow to what once frightened you. You no longer organize your whole inner life around what God already carried you through. This is why you must be careful with the urge to go backward emotionally whenever life feels uncertain. The old way may feel easier because it is known, but known does not mean holy. Familiar does not mean assigned. Comfortable does not mean correct. The enemy often hopes that if he cannot keep you trapped in the original battle, he can persuade you to recreate it within yourself. He hopes you will call old bondage discernment. He hopes you will call fear wisdom. He hopes you will pick up what God removed and carry it as though it still belongs to you. But you are not called to that cycle anymore. The grace on your life now is teaching you how to discern without drowning, how to remember without reliving, how to stay alert without surrendering your peace. That is maturity in the spirit. That is what freedom begins to look like. You do not have to return to old emotional weather just because the sky changes for a moment. You do not have to rebuild old defenses just because life feels unfamiliar. You do not have to wear yesterday's burden as proof that you learned something from yesterday's pain. So hear the tenderness in this warning. God is not scolding you. He is protecting your next season. He is reminding you that what He lifted, He meant to lift. What He closed, He meant to close. What He broke, He meant to break. And what He brought you out of, He did not bring you out of so that you could slowly walk yourself back in. Noah's world changed because God intervened. Your inner world is changing for the same reason. Let the storm be over where God says it is over. Let the flood recede where God says it has receded. And above all, do not pick up what heaven has already removed. Because your peace is too precious to exchange for patterns that were only meant to keep you alive in a season that has already passed. You are being led into a truth that your old survival instincts may struggle to accept at first. Rest is now your assignment. Not later when every question is answered. Not later when every memory stops aching. Not later when your life finally looks so perfect that peace feels reasonable. Rest is your assignment now, in this very season, in this very stage of becoming. God is not asking you to earn it through more exhaustion. He is not asking you to deserve it by proving how much more you can carry. He is inviting you to receive it as an act of trust. That can feel unfamiliar because for so long you have associated movement with progress and strain with seriousness. You learned to believe that if you were not pushing, then maybe you were falling behind. If you were not worrying, then maybe you were missing something important. If you were not carrying the weight of every possible outcome, then maybe you were not being responsible enough. But God is undoing that old agreement in you. He is showing you that rest is not passivity. Rest is not neglect. Rest is not spiritual laziness. Rest is alignment. It is the soul coming back under the pace of heaven. Noah had to learn that too. After all the years of building, after all the warning, after all the labor, after all the noise of the flood, there came a period in which he could do nothing but remain where God had placed him. That must have tested him in a completely different way. Building required effort, enduring required courage, but waiting in the ark while the waters slowly moved according to God's timing required something else. It required restraint. It required surrender. It required the humility to accept that once he had obeyed, the next movement belonged to God. This is where many chosen ones become restless. You know how to obey in action, but do you know how to obey in stillness? You know how to move when heaven says build, but do you know how to remain when heaven says wait? You know how to pray through pressure, but do you know how to trust through quiet? These are not lesser forms of faith. In some ways, they are deeper forms. Activity can sometimes distract you from fear, but rest reveals what you truly believe about God's ability to hold you when you are no longer trying to hold everything yourself. Inside the ark, Noah was not steering the future. He was being carried into it. He was not forcing the waters to recede. He was trusting the one who had command over the deep. He was not manufacturing signs of progress every day. He was living within divine covering and learning what it meant to let God complete what God had begun. There is something profoundly healing about that image for your life right now. You do not have to force every transition. You do not have to create your own safety. You do not have to keep proving your worth by staying tense all the time. There is a holy rest that comes when you accept that God's faithfulness does not depend on your strain. And this rest is not empty. It is not wasted time. It is not a pause without purpose. Rest recalibrates you. Rest returns your inner life to truth. Rest teaches your nervous system that peace is no longer an intruder. Rest allows the soul to remember that God is not only present in battle, He is present in stillness too. In fact, some of the deepest restoration God will ever do in you will happen after the crisis, when there is finally enough quiet for healing to surface. That may be why this season feels both beautiful and strange. Part of you longs for rest, but another part does not know how to trust it yet. Part of you is relieved the pressure is lifting, but another part keeps waiting for something terrible to interrupt the calm. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are adjusting. The heart does not always recognize safety immediately after prolonged strain. Sometimes it must be taught. Sometimes it must be shown again and again that peace is not a trick. Sometimes it must learn, slowly and tenderly, that rest can be holy ground. So when God calls you to rest, do not insult the invitation by calling it weakness. Do not resist the medicine because you got used to the wound. Do not keep yourself agitated just because agitation once felt productive. Let God retrain your inner world. Let Him show you that you can breathe without bracing. Let Him show you that silence does not always mean danger. Let Him show you that your calling does not disappear when you stop striving. It becomes clearer, Noah did not become less faithful when he rested in the ark. He became more dependent on God, and that is exactly what this season is asking of you. Dependence, not frantic effort, not endless analysis, not compulsive control. Dependence, the kind that trusts divine timing more than human urgency. The kind that can stay under covering without trying to break out early. The kind that understands that obedience sometimes looks like motion, and sometimes it looks like peaceful restraint. As you let that truth settle deeper, let this also be a gentle reminder to stay connected to the voices and spaces that strengthen your faith. If these words are helping you breathe again, helping you slow down, helping you hear God more clearly, take a moment to like this message. Share it with someone who has been carrying too much, and subscribe so you can keep receiving encouragement for the road ahead. And if you feel led to support this work, there is a way to donate in the description. But above all, remember the spiritual center of what is being spoken to you now. Rest is not a side note. It is not a luxury for when life becomes easier. It is part of your obedience. It is part of your healing. It is part of the testimony God is writing in you. Noah rested because there was nothing left to prove and nowhere safer to be than where God had placed him. You are being invited into that same revelation. The battle did not make you holy by itself. God's presence did. And now that same presence is teaching you to lie down internally, to unclench, to release, to trust. Rest is now your assignment. And what feels unfamiliar today will soon become the atmosphere where your soul remembers how to live again. You are entering a deeper understanding now, one that changes the way you look at opposition, delay, and all the pressure that once seemed so powerful. Your enemies have already been scattered. That does not always mean every difficult person vanished overnight or every challenge dissolved in a dramatic moment. It means something even deeper. It means that the forces assigned to stop your progress no longer hold the authority they once appeared to have. It means the resistance that surrounded you has already begun losing formation under the hand of God. It means the fear that once moved like an army against your peace is being broken apart, and what used to look coordinated is now falling into confusion. That truth matters because when you have lived through long seasons of pressure, you can continue reacting as if the enemy is still stronger than he really is. You can continue expecting ambush where God has already created distance. You can continue speaking as though the opposition is united and advancing, even while heaven is quietly dismantling it piece by piece. Sometimes the greatest shift is not that the enemy stops making noise. It is that his noise no longer carries real power. God begins to scatter what once seemed concentrated. He weakens what once looked solid. He breaks apart what once intimidated you through sheer repetition. Noah's story reveals this in a way that is easy to miss if you only look at the surface. When the flood came, it was not just a story of judgment or survival. It was also the story of every force outside the ark losing its final claim over the life God had chosen to preserve. The corruption of that age had spread everywhere. Violence had filled the earth. Wickedness had become the atmosphere of the world. Everything around Noah looked as though darkness had gathered itself into one overwhelming tide. But when God moved, all the systems that seemed so established were shown to be temporary. What looked entrenched was scattered. What looked immovable was swept away. What looked dominant could not stand before the decision of God. That is important for your spirit right now because you may still be measuring your future by the size of what once opposed you. But Noah's survival was proof that widespread opposition is still no match for divine preservation. The generation around him may have moved in one direction, but their agreement could not override God's purpose. The corruption may have seemed everywhere, but everywhere still has limits when God speaks. The violence may have multiplied, but multiplication does not equal permanence. In the same way, the things that gathered against your peace, your calling, your confidence, and your sense of hope are not as permanent as they once looked. Inside the ark, Noah was not fighting each wave individually. He was not climbing onto the roof to challenge the storm. He was not wrestling the flood with his own hands. God had already placed him in a position where the opposition could rage without reaching him in the same way. That is a powerful image for your life. There are seasons when God does not ask you to answer every attack. He does not ask you to match energy with every force that rises against you. He simply places you under his covering and lets time reveal that what was against you has already begun to lose structure. This is often how enemies are scattered in the spirit, not always through your confrontation, but through God's intervention. Not always through your visible struggle, but through his invisible ruling. Not always because you became stronger than everything around you, but because he remained sovereign over everything around you. Noah was preserved not because evil ceased to exist before the flood, but because God's hand set a boundary around the life assigned to continue. You need to hear that deeply. Opposition does not have to disappear completely before God proves it cannot own you. The word says, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Psalm 91, verse 11. That is not a small promise. It means heaven is not passive about your life. It means divine protection is not an abstract comfort, but an active reality. It means the things assigned to guard you come from a kingdom stronger than the one trying to threaten you. When God commands protection over your path, the enemy may still attempt movement, but he cannot keep formation where God has already spoken. He cannot maintain unity against a person whose life is being guarded by a higher authority. Noah eventually came to the place where the waters began to recede. The ark rested, and the evidence of survival became undeniable. But even before that visible rest, the scattering had already begun. The same waters that seemed so overwhelming were also dismantling the old order that had dominated the earth. While Noah waited in obedience, God was undoing what looked established. That is what may be happening in your own life now. While you are praying, healing, resting, and learning to trust again, God is undoing what once towered over you. While you feel hidden, he is scattering what threatened you. While you feel like little is changing, heaven may be dissolving strongholds you do not yet realize are already losing their grip. This is why you do not need to panic every time an old fear echoes in your mind. An echo is not an army. A memory is not a prophecy. A familiar pressure is not proof that you are back where you started. Sometimes what you are hearing is only the fading sound of something that has already been broken in the spirit. Sometimes what you are sensing is not fresh defeat, but the final tremor of a defeated pattern losing its place in your life. God is teaching you to stop honoring scattered enemies as if they are still gathered in full strength, and there is a holy confidence rising in you because of that. Not arrogance, not denial, but confidence rooted in the faithfulness of God. You are beginning to see that not every threat deserves your fear. Not every shadow deserves your surrender. Not every old voice deserves another seat at your table. The Lord who preserved Noah through the storm did not merely keep him alive. He brought him through a season in which the hostile atmosphere around him was broken apart by divine judgment and divine mercy at once. So stand in this truth today. The resistance is not as united as it once appeared. The fear is not as strong as it once sounded. The enemies that seemed so certain of your downfall are already being scattered by the hand of God. You do not have to gather them back together with your anxiety. You do not have to rebuild their power with your imagination. You do not have to keep treating old opposition like an undefeated force. Heaven is moving. God is guarding. And what once rose against you is losing formation. Your enemies have already been scattered. Peace can feel unfamiliar at first, and that truth reaches deeper than many people realize. You can pray for rest, long for relief, and cry out for the battle to end. But when peace finally begins to settle over your life, part of you may not know how to receive it right away. That is not because you are ungrateful. It is not because you secretly prefer struggle. It is because your inner world has been shaped by survival for so long that calm can feel almost unnatural. You have learned how to function under pressure. You have learned how to keep moving through uncertainty. You have learned how to think quickly, protect yourself, and brace for impact. But now God is introducing you to a different way of living. And at first, that new atmosphere can feel strange. You may notice it in small moments. A quiet day arrives, and instead of enjoying it, your mind starts scanning for what might go wrong. A prayer is answered, and instead of resting in gratitude, you wait nervously for something to undo it. A door opens, and instead of stepping through with confidence, you hesitate because you are more familiar with disappointment than ease. That is what prolonged warfare does to the heart. It teaches you how to survive danger, but it does not automatically teach you how to trust safety. It teaches you how to endure storms, but it does not immediately teach you how to live under open skies. This is where Noah's story becomes especially tender. After all the years of warning, building, entering, waiting, enduring, and floating through a world reshaped by flood, there came a time when the waters receded and the ark rested. Think about how strange that must have felt. For so long, Noah's life had been defined by preparation and confinement. First, there was the long obedience of building. Then there was the intensity of entering the ark. Then there was the endless sound of rain, the movement of water, the uncertainty of waiting while God carried him through what no human strength could control. And then, after all of that, stillness began to return. But stillness after chaos does not always feel peaceful immediately. Sometimes it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes it feels delicate, almost too good to trust. Noah had lived through an experience so immense that stepping into a calmer world would not have been only a physical transition. It would have been an emotional and spiritual one as well. He had to adjust. He had to learn how to move in a world where the old threat no longer ruled the same way. He had to recognize that the resting of the ark was not a pause before another disaster. It was a sign that God had indeed brought him through. That is where many chosen ones are standing now. The ark has rested in some area of your life, but your emotions are still catching up. The waters are lower, but your thoughts still rise quickly. The danger has shifted, but your body still remembers how to brace. This is why you must be patient with yourself in the healing process. Peace often arrives before you fully know how to inhabit it. Rest may be given before your mind stops questioning it. Safety may become available before your habits fully believe it. God understands that. He is not disturbed by your adjustment period. He is walking with you through it. The word says, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46, verse 10. That command is deeper than mere silence. It is an invitation to let the soul stop struggling for control long enough to recognize who is holding everything together. For Noah, the resting of the ark was a call to that kind of recognition. The flood had not ended because of human skill. The new beginning had not arrived because Noah figured everything out. It happened because God remained faithful from beginning to end. In the same way, the peace coming into your life is not fragile because it does not depend only on you. It rests on the faithfulness of God. Still, you may have moments when peace feels almost suspicious. You may wonder whether something is wrong simply because nothing feels urgent. You may search for conflict out of habit. The way a person kept awake by years of alarms struggles to trust a silent night. But silence is not always absence. Sometimes silence is healing. Sometimes the absence of chaos is the very evidence that God has answered more than you can currently measure. Sometimes the quiet you do not yet know how to enjoy is the answer to prayers you cried with tears you have nearly forgotten. This is why you must resist the temptation to create tension just because peace feels unfamiliar. Do not reopen emotional storms to make yourself feel prepared. Do not return to old fears just because they are recognizable. Do not sabotage calm simply because your nervous system is still adjusting to it. Noah did not need to shake the ark to prove he remembered the flood. He needed to trust the God who brought the ark to rest. You are being called into that same trust now. And as you learn this, your soul will begin to soften. What feels unnatural now will become more normal with time. Your breathing will change. Your prayers will change. Even your relationship with the future will change. You will stop treating every unknown as a threat. You will stop assuming every pause hides danger. You will begin to experience peace not as a break between battles, but as a way of living under God's care. That transformation may be slow, but it is real. Healing often enters quietly before it becomes steady. If this speaks to your spirit, comment, "I receive peace." Let that simple response become an act of agreement with what God is doing inside you. You are not behind because peace feels new. You are not failing because rest feels unfamiliar. You are in transition. You are learning how to live after survival mode. You are learning how to trust the ground after the flood. You are learning how to let calm be holy instead of strange. Noah's story reminds you that the God who carried you through the waters is also the God who teaches you how to stand when the ark comes to rest. And that means this quiet season is not something to fear. It is something to receive little by little until peace no longer feels like a visitor, but like home. You are entering your reward season, and that truth may feel almost too gentle for everything you have survived. After so much pressure, so much waiting, so much inner stretching, it can be hard to believe that restoration is not only possible but appointed. You may have grown so accustomed to carrying, enduring, and adjusting that the idea of receiving feels unfamiliar. Yet this is what God does. He does not only bring you through, He also brings you into. He does not only preserve you from destruction, He leads you toward restoration. He does not only close the chapter of battle, He opens the chapter of renewal. And now your soul is standing at that threshold. Reward season does not always arrive with instant spectacle. Sometimes it begins quietly, like light spreading over land that has been underwater for far too long. Sometimes it starts with small evidences that God has not forgotten anything you carried for His name. A new clarity enters your thoughts. A steadier peace takes root in your heart. Strength begins returning without strain. Hope no longer feels forced. What once felt impossible to imagine starts feeling near, then real, then present. This is how restoration often begins, not always with noise, but with life returning. Noah's story shows this with profound beauty. After the flood, after the waiting, after the confinement of the ark, after the long season where the old world had passed away but the new one had not fully appeared, there came a moment when Noah stepped onto dry ground. That moment was more than survival. It was restoration in motion. He was no longer only the man who endured the storm. He was now the man who would live beyond it. The ground beneath his feet testified that judgment had not been the end of his story. God's preservation had carried him toward a future. That matters for you because some part of your heart may still think in terms of mere survival. You may still be thanking God simply because you made it through, and that gratitude is good and holy. But God is lifting your eyes beyond that. He is showing you that survival was never the final goal. It was the bridge, it was the passage, it was the way through. Now he is teaching you to live as someone who is not just spared, but restored. There is a difference. A spared person remembers the storm. A restored person begins to plant again. Noah did exactly that. He did not remain forever defined by the ark. He did not build his whole future around the memory of floodwaters. He stepped into the next thing. He moved with the reality of a new beginning. He honored what God had done, but he did not remain frozen inside what had been. That is one of the clearest signs of reward season. You begin to move again, not from panic, but from promise. You begin to build again, not because you are afraid of loss, but because you believe life can grow. You begin to trust that what God preserved, He also intends to bless. The Word says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Joel chapter 2, verse 25. That promise reaches deeply into this moment. It tells you that God is not limited to helping you survive damage. He is also able to restore what was lost in the damage. He can bring fruitfulness after barrenness. He can bring tenderness after hardness. He can bring beauty where grief once seemed permanent. He can return meaning to years that felt swallowed by pressure and pain. This is not human optimism. This is divine restoration. For Noah, the reward was not only that he lived, the reward was that God established covenant with him. God spoke peace over the future in a way that touched not only Noah's present but the generations to come. A sign appeared in the sky, not as decoration, but as testimony. The rainbow declared that the flood would not have the final word over the relationship between God and the earth. That matters for you because reward season is not only about receiving things. It is about receiving reassurance. It is about God confirming that what He carried you through had purpose, and what lies ahead is not random. He gives promises that quiet the heart. He gives signs of mercy that allow you to breathe again. You may notice now that your reward season is already beginning in ways you almost overlooked. Maybe your mind is clearer than it was. Maybe your sleep is less troubled. Maybe your heart does not react with the same fear it once did. Maybe doors are beginning to open that fit who you are becoming rather than who you were while wounded. Maybe there is a new hunger in you for peace, truth, and steady joy. Do not dismiss those things because they seem simple. Restoration often enters through what looks small before it becomes undeniable. At the same time, reward season does not mean every memory disappears overnight. Noah surely still remembered the storm even while standing on dry ground. But memory no longer ruled the meaning of his life. The future had been reopened. That is what God is doing in you now. He is reopening the future. He is teaching you to imagine goodness again. He is teaching you to live without expecting every blessing to vanish. He is teaching you to receive with open hands what your wounded self once felt too afraid to hold. This new season also carries responsibility. When God restores you, He is not simply comforting you. He is repositioning you. He is making you able to reflect His faithfulness through the way you live. Noah became a witness that God's mercy can carry a person through impossible waters and still lead them into promise. In the same way, your restoration will speak, your peace will speak, your steadiness will speak. Your healed way of walking will tell a story to others who still think the flood is all there is. So let this settle deeply into you. You are not approaching an empty future. You are entering your reward season. The God who preserved Noah through waters he could not control also brought him into a world made new by mercy. The same God is leading you now. What you lost is not beyond his reach. What was delayed is not forgotten. What was wounded is not disqualified from healing. Dry ground is appearing. Promise is re-emerging, and you are learning, little by little, to walk as someone who is no longer only recovering from the battle, but receiving from the goodness of God after it. You are now standing in the final turn of this message, and the truth has become clear. Walk forward like victory is already finished. That is not denial. That is not fantasy. That is not pretending that life will never test you again. It is the posture of a soul that has finally accepted what God has been revealing all along. You are not walking toward a war that still needs to be won. You are walking from a battle God has already settled in the Spirit. You are not trying to become chosen. You already are. You are not trying to force peace into existence. You are learning how to live from the peace heaven has already released over your life. This is where everything begins to change. When you still think like the battle is undecided, you move with tension, suspicion, and inner strain. You speak as though every day must prove itself before you can trust it. You hold yourself in a permanent state of emotional readiness, always expecting the next blow, always preparing for the next disappointment, always guarding against the next loss. But when you begin to believe that God's victory is not fragile, your whole way of living starts to shift. Your steps get steadier. Your breathing gets deeper. Your thoughts lose some of their old panic. You no longer wake up each morning feeling like you must defeat the darkness before you can have permission to live. That is what this message has been carrying you toward. Not merely relief, but a new posture. Not merely survival, but authority. Not merely comfort, but conviction. You have been taught through every previous season that God can sustain you in the ark, preserve you through the flood, calm the fear, and bring you to rest. Now you must learn the final lesson of this journey. Once God has brought you through, you must not keep living as though you are still under the old sentence. Once He has spoken peace, you must not continue speaking only from panic. Once He has brought the ark to rest, you must not walk as though the waters still own the earth. There is a holy boldness in quiet confidence. It does not need to shout. It does not need to prove itself to everybody. It simply knows where it stands. And this is what God is forming in you now. A settled spirit, a quieter mind, a heart that has stopped confusing anxiety with wisdom. A life that no longer gives all its energy to rehearsing danger. You are learning to carry yourself like someone protected, led, and upheld by God. That kind of life becomes a testimony all by itself. People can sense when someone is no longer being driven by fear. People can feel when someone is crossed over from striving into trust. But this kind of walking does not happen by accident. It happens by agreement. It happens when you make a decision to stop partnering with the old atmosphere. It happens when you stop feeding yourself the language of defeat. It happens when you refuse to bow to every anxious thought that tries to call itself truth. It happens when you say in your spirit that if God has brought me here, then I will live here. If God says the battle is won, then I will not keep acting as though everything depends on my panic. If God says rest, I will rest. If God says peace, I will receive peace. If God says move forward, I will not keep asking permission from my past. And somewhere in that decision, prayer begins to rise naturally. So let this become your prayer now. Father, in the quiet of this moment, I give you every part of me that still thinks like the battle is not over. I give you the fear that still braces for what you have already blocked. I give you the habits of survival that keep trying to follow me into peace. I give you the parts of my mind that still expect loss more easily than blessing. Teach me to walk in the finished work of your faithfulness. Teach me to live like your covering is real. Teach me to rest without guilt, to trust without fear, and to move forward without dragging old chains behind me. Where my heart still trembles, steady me. Where my thoughts still race, calm me. Where my soul still struggles to receive peace, soften me. Let your presence become more natural to me than panic ever was. Let your truth become louder in me than every memory of the storm. And let the next season of my life reflect not what tried to destroy me, but what your mercy has already overcome. Amen. There is power in a prayer like that because it shifts your inner agreement. It moves you out of reaction and into surrender. It reminds you that transformation is not achieved by pressure alone. It comes through presence. It comes through yielding. It comes through letting God retrain what battle once shaped. And that is what this whole journey has been about. God has not only been ending a season around you, He has been renewing a posture within you. He has been teaching you to live from victory instead of constantly reaching for it. So from this day forward, let your life reflect that new reality. Speak with greater peace, choose with greater steadiness, rest with greater trust. When old fear tries to revisit, do not entertain it as master. When old tension tries to return, do not treat it as your guide. When old patterns try to pull you backward, remember what God has already shown you. The battle taught you endurance, but peace will now teach you authority. The flood taught you dependence, but dry ground will now teach you how to stand. The ark taught you preservation, but the open future will now teach you how to walk in promise. And while you continue in this journey, stay close to what strengthens your faith. If these words have helped you hear God's heart more clearly, take a moment to like this message, share it with someone who needs this same peace, and subscribe so you can stay connected to the messages ahead. And if you feel led to support this work, there is a way to donate in the description. Now take one last deep breath and let the truth settle where fear once lived. You are not moving into uncertainty alone. You are not standing on fragile ground. You are not beginning from defeat. You are walking forward from a victory that God has already declared. That means your future does not have to be carried by striving. It can be carried by trust. Your next steps do not have to be ruled by panic. They can be guided by peace. Your life does not have to keep circling the memory of the storm. It can finally move with the dignity of someone who knows the battle is already won. So now the message comes to rest the same way your soul is learning to rest. Gently, quietly, deeply. You have heard what heaven needed you to hear. You were never meant to struggle forever. The war has been losing its hold. Your weariness has not been wasted. God has protected you in ways you never saw. He has removed things you must not pick up again. He has called you into rest, scattered what rose against you, and taught you how to receive peace without fear. And now you stand at the edge of a new way of living, not as someone still trapped in survival mode, but as someone being taught to walk in settled trust. Let this truth stay with you when the message ends. Let it follow you into your next morning, your next prayer, your next choice, your next breath. God has not brought you this far to leave you in the mindset of old battles. He is leading you into a steadier life, a quieter heart, and a future shaped more by His faithfulness than by your former fears. Rest now. Breathe now. Walk forward now. The battle is already won.